We now speak to Sello Dithebe, spokesperson of Free State Premier Policy Dukwana. So Dithebe, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Now let's talk about the current status of this investigation into the deaths of the suspected illegal miners.
Good afternoon to you, Hugo, and the viewers of Newzroom Afrika.
What is the current state of that investigation, sir?
You would have heard earlier that the Minister of Mineral Resources, Minister Mantashe, spoke about this particular situation and expressed his frustration about what's going on in that area. So the investigation certainly resides within the purview of the department, working closely, obviously, with the law enforcement authorities as the province. Certainly the Premier and the government will do anything and everything possible to assist in that whenever he is required to do so.
Mr. Dithebe, it's always sad when people lose their lives, whether they're illegal or not. What other information is available to us about these miners?
Well, you will know that this is an ongoing phenomenon, not only in the Free State, but certainly in Mpumalanga, in Gauteng, and quite a number of other provinces. This is deeply disturbing because not only does it pose a risk to the lives of those that are involved in this illicit activity, but certainly to the economic infrastructure of not only our province, but certainly of the entire country, because you will know that wherever these individuals are involved in illegal mining, they also tend to destroy vital infrastructure that belongs to the country, which is sorely needed. Certainly, we cannot condone any loss of life, but anything and everything possible must be done to contain this so that, in particular, foreign nationals not get involved in illegal activities on our own soil. That doesn't suggest, of course, that this only involves foreign nationals. There certainly are South Africans that do this, but it is something that government certainly is worried about and calls on anyone in our communities to assist law enforcement authorities so that we can put an end to this.
Now, information on the ground suggests that Lesotho Ministry of Foreign Affairs became aware of the deaths and that they are the ones that advise the local government. Is that correct? The Lesotho government, can you repeat that part? Sorry, I missed that. That the information around these 30-odd individuals that died in this mine, that information came from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Lesotho. Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't know the real facts around that, but certainly if that happened in South Africa, we have not only the police and other sections of the law enforcement agencies, but we also have communities. So logically, it dictates that the information would have come from within South Africa. It is possible, certainly, that some of the people related to these people who are now deceased might have informed their next of kin back home, and that information might possibly have been passed on to the government of Lesotho, but it does not make sense that they would have been the first ones to know about this. You earlier talked about the 8 bodies in Germiston, and certainly it is people in South Africa who would have alerted law enforcement authorities. So, as I say, I think while I do not have the full facts, it does not seem to make sense that they would have been the first ones to know about this.
Well, Gwede Mantashe in that report seems to suggest that the nation of Lesotho seems to know what is going on or in some way be involved in mining activities or supporting some of these individuals that are illegally mining in South Africa. Would that vindicate his statement if that was the case, if that information did in fact originate from Lesotho and that our own systems weren't able to pick it up?
Well, that's the space certainly at the moment that the Premier and the provincial government would not want to get in because such information would be information that's shared between the government of Lesotho and our own government, that is the national government, and through all proper channels. So at this stage, we are unable to comment with authority on such an allegation without suggesting that which Minister Mantashe is saying is not true, but certainly he should be having reason to believe that. The critical point here, Hugo, is that as the Free State and as in Lesotho being a sovereign country that neighbors the Free State, we are certainly concerned that this kind of illicit activity, as I said, takes place on our soil, and that not only does it pose, as it were, a threat to the lives of those involved, but we have seen throughout, whether it's our water infrastructure, water infrastructure or sewage infrastructure or anything of that sort, there always is something that they do which destroys our public infrastructure. So, yes, we are deeply concerned that this happens, but I think the details as to the allegations or the averment attributed to Minister Mantashe can be dealt with at national level in that context.
Well, Mr. Dithebe, let's talk about some of the other problems that arise from illegal mining activity. It's not just the illegality of mining, but it's almost everything else that many of these illegal miners do, and that they're a law unto themselves, that they do not obey the law in the areas in which they operate. Many of them are responsible for criminal activities. What plans are being made to reduce or to deal with this?
Well, as the provincial government, certainly at the level of law enforcement, there always are plans to ensure that intelligence is obtained about these kinds of activities. Details thereof can be shared with you by the law enforcement agencies, but certainly it is not something that government is just watching and doing nothing about it. And naturally, what the provincial government does is that it will work jointly with your net joints where necessary, through the prop joints, that is the forum where the law enforcement authorities coordinate their strategies insofar as containing certain types of crime, whether it's cash in transit heist or armed robbery or any of the activities that you've referred to that these individuals are involved in. And it does indeed concern the provincial government, the Premier, because this destroys the economy. Anything that is illicit and cannot be accounted for within the broader macroeconomic framework, as it were, even within the microeconomic framework, insofar as people, where people, for example, have to go about doing their own thing, buying things or purchasing things. This kind of activity certainly does have a very deleterious or harmful effect on the fabric of our economy.
Now, what also is worrisome is that these are over 30 individuals, 30 illegal miners that have been found. If we include the 8 bodies found in Germiston, and if they are indeed illegal miners, that's almost 40 individuals that have died in a short space of time that are illegal miners. That, in fact, then paints to a rather big picture of the number of illegal miners that are out there. Do we have a stat on this number?
Well, at the moment, I think the Department of Minerals and Mineral Resources will certainly, and the law enforcement agencies will share that information with the country, but it can only be estimated because, remember, these are illegal activities, and it begins certainly in the minds of individuals. So at the point of them occurring, we can only do a particular projection to say, we think so many of these individuals are involved in this, given a number of abandoned shafts, and even sometimes it's not even in abandoned shafts, it's those that are active. Certainly, I know in the Machabeng area, there are allegations even of senior officials, employed by the mine, being in cahoots with these individuals, them offering money as much as 100,000 rand and so forth. So this goes on, and it requires that our intelligence certainly must be on the ground, and this must be nipped in the bud. So as I say, we don't have an exact number, but certainly it is not a small number, as you can see. If 31, 40 people at a go, could die, albeit in different provinces. It is a matter of great concern, certainly to government in the province and without a doubt at national level, as you've heard from Minister Mantashe.
Now, the regular process, Mr. Dithebe, is that if a foreigner dies in a foreign land, if you will, there are certain processes that are carried out in the repatriation of those bodies. But in this instance, these illegal miners may not be positively identified. Those bodies have decomposed from what we understand. What would be the process of burial of these bodies?
Well, from time to time, the Department of Home Affairs would work closely with other law enforcement agencies, etc., to try and positively identify these people. If their DNA can be obtained, then even better. But we do not have control over those processes, especially if the tissue has deteriorated to a point that there can be no positive identification of the deceased, because that can only be done by forensics. And as if somebody gets involved in an accident such as a crash, maybe and their body is charred beyond recognition, or similarly if it has decomposed to a point where what scientific tools there are cannot effectively be used to determine their identity. Unfortunately, they may not in the end be known, all of them. But that is a detail that should be left to all those that are doing the kind of job that is intended to identify people who have died, whose identity may not be positively identified at this stage.
Final question before we let you go, sir. Border security issues. Are you pushing for greater activity in that area?
Certainly, we wouldn't be complacent. We wouldn't, as government would not sit back and simply do nothing about that. It is something that is ongoing, but it is something that involves not only law enforcement authorities and intelligence communities in a traditional sense, because security is a multi-layered thing. And in this instance, in the spirit, in the letter of our constitution, we also want our own people to get involved. But government is interested also in ensuring that there continue to be friendly relations between the government of Lesotho and the government of South Africa, and certainly us as the Free State. There's a long history to the relations between the Lesotho and this particular province. So that should also be assisted. That process must be assisted, supported by the government of Lesotho. And from the side of government in the Free State, certainly working closely with the national government, that kind of effort will continue to be put into action so that these things are avoided.
Sello Dithebe is the spokesperson of the Free State Premier, Policy Dukwana. Appreciate your time this afternoon.